Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 12th and final round.
Right hand, Golovkin steps in and down he goes again. Unbelievable. Mayweather makes a pay. What a rookie mistake. A sensational left hook by De La Hoya.
It's fact. I'm the best. You know what I mean? Sometimes I don't want to believe it myself, but it's the truth. I'm the best. I'm going to show you how great I am.
From Southern California, this is the Last Round Podcast.
Fight reviews this upcoming Saturday. Actually, I jumped right into it. Welcome back to this week's episode. You know, I just wanted to start talking about the fights this week, Mike, but we are back with episode 161 of the Last Round Podcast. Thank you again for joining us. But like I said, jumping right into it, fight reviews this upcoming Saturday, the 22nd of January, from the Borgota. How would you say that?
Borgota, yeah.
I don't even know if that's how you say it. Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City, New Jersey. Atlantic City. It's been a while since I feel like back on the map, right? You know, remember back in the 90s, the 80s, Don King had a lot of fights there.
Arturo Gatti's home ground, his home stadium.
Exactly. So Atlantic City. Let's see if I think that'd be kind of awesome, because if they start getting fights again, because that's one place that I've always wanted to go for a fight, just because of the history back there. So that's very interesting to see it come back like this. In an upset, I would say Mark Magsayo. I was calling him Mark Magasayo last week, so I apologize for that. Mark Magsayo remains undefeated and captures the WBC Featherweight Championship of the World as he gains the majority decision over Gary Russell Jr., who takes the second loss of his career. And Gary Russell has held this title for 6-7 years, something like that. And he finally, I don't want to say voluntarily relinquishes it, but it got taken away from him as Magsayo defeats him and becomes the featherweight champion of the world. What was your reaction to the outcome of this fight, Mike?
Gary Russell obviously, injured his shoulder. But he did look a little bit slower. His feet weren't as quick as they used to be. It did look like Father Time had caught up with him. But it's one of those cases where, if he wasn't injured, would he have won this? I don't know. And by the sounds of it, I don't think Magsayo is going to give him a rematch. I think he's going to run off with the title and go somewhere else.
Well, he was a mandatory. He was a mandatory, right?
Yeah, exactly. So will we see Gary Russell come back? Will he call it a day? Before the fight, he was talking about actually trying to fight 3 times a year. I think he was kind of realizing, that it was coming towards the end of his career now. But Magsayo, good performance from him. Can't take anything away from him. On to bigger and better things. And, hopefully we'll see the WBC title, out more than once a year now.
So Magsayo won by scores of 115 and 113 twice, and there was a score of 114, 114. I'll take the hit. Last week I chose Gary Russell to win. It's not that Mark Magsayo's not talented, but I just felt Gary Russell. We had that conversation last week when we talked about this fight, when we previewed this fight, about how Gary Russell comes out once a year for the last several years since he captured that title, essentially. And people always think, the pundits, the media, reporters, fans, they always think, the inactivity, it's not going to work, but every fight he came out on, before last Saturday and obviously excluding the Lomachenko fight, he was always the better man. He fought very well. He was slick. He was fast. He was accurate. So I had to rely on that history and that experience of seeing Gary Russell Jr. in those past fights. So I thought, okay, it should be the same. I mean, the only thing that I did think about was that, the pandemic. Obviously, he didn't fight. I don't think he fought last year. So, it's been an extra long layoff, which is ironic to say since he's only fights once a year, essentially. But yeah, like I said, I picked Gary Russell Jr. last week to retain his title. But then watching this fight, when the bell rang at the end of the 12th round, I thought, you know what? Magsayo did enough to win. I was fine with the decision. And like you said, hopefully, do you think Gary Russell Jr. and his team, Al Heyman, his advisors, are going to try and make a rematch?
I think they may try to make a rematch just to get the title back, because obviously, like, holding a belt commands more money. But from what he was saying before the fight about how he wanted to fight all these different people and weight classes above, he may just chase big fights and try to cash out. He's had some Twitter beef, with other fighters, and wasn't he like at one point calling out Crawford? Last year or something like that. Maybe he was just bored during COVID.
I don't know where that came from. I really don't.
Yeah, have some sort of beef during the amateurs or something like that. But that would be good, if he just decided, like, I'm nearly done. Obviously, Father Time, I'm getting injured. My feet are slowing down. Let's just pick up some, big name fights. I'm all for that. I'm all for that.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, I think we touched on last week. We talked about how Gary Russell Jr. is that type of fighter, at least from the outside looking in, where he's a fighter second above all. Like, fighting is just his job. It's not like his passion. It's not, he just looks at it as his job. He's like, this is what I do to make a living, So is it possible that he's just kind of like, you know what? I had a good run. I was champion for 7 years, which is a long time, even though he only had like one fight a year. He was, inactive for a long time, essentially. But I mean, in the history books, it's going to say, yeah, this guy was world champion for 7 years or whatever it was, 6-7 years. I don't know. Like you said, I agree with you in terms of I hope we see the bigger marquee fights with him, because that was the one thing that always kind of bothered me about his career, is just like he would only fight once a year, and typically he would only fight the mandatories, which for the mandatories would be great because, like, okay, you work yourself into that position and you get a world title shot. But there was a lot of names who have passed him up or are in or around his division who he could have fought. What about like a Leo Santa Cruz? I would still like to see that fight. If I was PBC and Al Heyman, I would talk to Leo Santa Cruz and Gary Russell and just say, hey, how about you two fight later this year? I don't know. Hopefully we see that, but I don't have the expectation that it might happen, but it's possible. What if Al Heyman comes to Gary Russell Jr. and says, like, hey, how about Leo Santa Cruz? That's the most money you're ever going to make in a fight anyways, because that's likely going to be, I mean, maybe besides Lomachenko, that's likely going to be the biggest marquee name that he can make the most money with. I mean, maybe he'll make more money with Leo Santa Cruz than he did with Lomachenko. I don't know. But I don't know, man. I just don't see it. Like, I wouldn't even be surprised if he just says, like, you know what? I'm done. I did what I had to do. I'm confident. I'm happy with my work. It's like Andre Ward. When Andre Ward retired, he had technically cleaned out a lot of the division, and he had beat Kovalev twice or whatever it was. There wasn't really anybody who was close to his division who he could fight that would be a legitimate threat. So I think that kind of contributed to his retirement. But he's always I always view him as like Andre Ward as that type of guy. Like, oh man, like he still had a lot to offer, and I just think he retired too early. Even though to him he retired at perfect time. That's what he wanted. That's what worked out for him and his family and his career. But he still had a lot to offer. Like, imagine him in a Canelo fight now. But
he left a lot of money on the table, didn't he? Like him and like Lennox Lewis. And they kind of just went out like at the top. Like if Lewis had just gone for like 6 months to a year, like just imagine the purses that he's been offered to come back and fight Vitaly.
Right. Exactly. So I don't know. Gary Russell Jr. strikes me as that similar scenario, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But congrats to Mark Magsayo, who fights under the Manny Pacquiao Promotions banner. So Manny Pacquiao, I did see a video of when Manny Pacquiao had FaceTimed Mark Magsayo after his win. gave him some congratulations and all that stuff. So that was kind of cool to see. And I'm sure Manny Pacquiao and the president of Manny Pacquiao Promotions, Sean Gibbons, are very happy. So is Freddie Roach. Freddie Roach trains him. So, and Freddie Roach, that just shows you Freddie Roach is still going, man. He's still doing his thing and getting guys to world championships. So good for them. Also on that card, King Tug gets the fights to a split draw over Sakaria Lucas. This was a disappointing result for King Tug. But I mean, there was also some type of blown knockdown call, right? In round 8. What happened there?
The referee called it a slip when it should have been a knockdown. And then you had that weird situation of the ring announcer actually kind of called the referee over and they kind of watched it. And it was one of those situations where you could see on the replay that he should have called it a knockdown. Right. But the referee was just kind of going, no, like he couldn't see it. Like he was never going to admit that he was wrong. Kind of like an awkward situation to kind of watch it back. Probably King Tug was probably lucky to kind of walk away with a draw. I thought Lucas probably should have won it. King Tug looked like a little bit slow, just couldn't really get into any kind of rhythm. Kind of got a bit of a home decision there. Would have been a good victory for Sakari Lucas, who would have been 26-0. It's a good little resume. Obviously, King Tug's been the IBO champion. He's fought Gary Russell before. So, yeah, it would have been a good name to have on his ledger.
Right. So, I mean, do you think we'll see a rematch after that?
I don't know whether they're big enough names for people to kind of, chase that.
Right.
You haven't really heard much, outrage about it, unless you're like a real hardcore boxing fan who kind of watched it. Then you hear people talking about it, but it's not on ESPN. The replays of the supposed slip and stuff like that haven't been all over the social media like it would if it was a bigger fight.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I doubt it.
Right. But yeah, we'll see. Like I said, you're right. I don't think there's enough attention or money in a rematch. So they're probably just going to go their separate ways. And if we ever see a rematch, it'll be later on down the line if both of them are still on that winning, victorious path going forward. Rounding off the card, our guest of the week last week here on the last round, Evan Young Holyfield, the son of the legendary heavyweight champion Evander the Rio Deal Holyfield, gets the unanimous decision win over Chris Rollins and improves to the undefeated record of 9-0. What do you think about Holyfield's unanimous decision win?
I thought he looked good. I thought the rounds were doing well. I know obviously afterwards he looked kind of like a little bit disappointed that he didn't manage to get him out of there because he had quite a few KOs. But I think it was the next day, he must have watched it back and he'd thought about it and he said, you know what, I'm actually kind of happy that I managed to, get a few rounds under my belt. On to, bigger and better things. I'm sure he's going to get lots of opportunities due to his name. He's just got to rise to the occasion and, maybe not search the knockouts, just let them come, just box and let those come, let those opportunities just naturally open up and just take them.
Right. Yeah, he's definitely going to get a lot more opportunity. And obviously staying victorious and staying in the winning column is only going to help his career moving forward. Moving on, fight previews this upcoming weekend, as we talked about with Jeremiah Milton and his fight against Jason Bergman. This card is happening at the Hard Rock Hotel Casino in Tulsa, Oklahoma on ESPN, like we repeated earlier, headlined by Robson Conceicao, 16-1 against Xavier Martinez, 17-0. I don't really know too much about Xavier Martinez, but, just looking at the records, is this a decent matchup?
I would say so. Robson Conceicao is probably, I can't remember where you went with it, Danny, but probably unfortunate that he's not the champion when he had that debatable decision with Oscar Valdez when he tested positive but didn't test positive and they let him fight. Some people had Conceicao winning on that card. So just maybe one of those things where his name wasn't big enough and Oscar Valdez got the home decision because they were looking for bigger fights later down the line. But yeah, I would say Conceição probably wins. Good amateur, had 400 plus fights in the amateurs, depending on where you read it. Captured a gold medal at the 2016 Rio Olympics. Had a razor thin defeat to Lomachenko at the 2011 World Championships. And as we just touched on, should maybe be a world champion now after, a debatable decision against Oscar Valdez. So yeah, I would put my money on Robson Conceição if I was you. But I've been wrong before, and we've had how many underdogs have been winning in the last few years. But obviously, Xavier Martinez, Northern California guy, so he's local to us. Wish him all the best, and hopefully he does well. He had a 95 fights in the amateurs, 85-10 amateur record before turning pro in June 2015. Should be a good fight, but I would back, if you're going to put a gun to my head, I would back Conceição.
Based on all those little details about their amateur career and their prior dealings before turning pro, I mean, that's pretty good ingredients for a decent matchup this weekend. So I'm hoping it turns out to be that. For Robson Conceição, obviously you talked about how he is a gold medalist from the 2016 Rio Olympics. But he hasn't captured a world title. Maybe like you said, maybe some people thought he beat Oscar Valdez during that fight when Oscar Valdez, popped dirty and the WBC still let him fight and the state commission still let him fight. I believe that was in Arizona too. Yeah. Do you think, another gold medalist who didn't, I don't believe he won a world title, was Luke Campbell, right? Was that? Do you think
he never won one? Obviously challenged, but never won one.
Is there any chance that Robson Conceição turns out to be the same? I know it's early. I don't think so, but Luke Campbell was a gold medalist and never won a world title.
I think it really just depends on the area that you're born in, right? How many people, when you've got like a division like the lightweights, for example, now like there's so many killers in that division. I'm sure there's people that are super talented, but just don't get the chance because they're in there with generational guys. Like the heavyweights now. Like I'm sure Tyson Fury is probably going to mop up most of those titles, and then there's probably heavyweights that were good but just don't get a chance. Klitschko's, how many heavyweights missed out, during the Klitschko era because those guys were just so freaking dominant. I think it just depends because if you're born into a division where it's a little bit softer during that time, then you can maybe able to pick up a title. Well, you can probably pick up a WBA, right? There's plenty of them.
Yeah,
so Conceição just pick up one of those.
I guess, yeah. I think he's going to be world champion. He'll be able to capture some type of world title, one of the major 4 world titles at least, during his career. So he has the significant level of pedigree prior to turning pro, and then based off his fight against Oscar Valdez, that's a big barometer to judge him by as well. But I hope this fight, I agree with you. I think Conceição is the favorite this weekend. If you want to be a betting person and bet on the fight, you go and put some money on Conceição. But looking at the background of both of these guys, it has the makings for a decent matchup, which I'm hoping comes about, with these types of ingredients. Also this upcoming weekend from the Packard Music Hall in Warren, Ohio, on Don King. He's back. He's still there, man. He's 80 something, 90s, somewhere around there. This is his card. He's the main primary promoter for this card, and this is going to be televised through a pay-per-view format on donking.com or DK Don King Promotions, DKPboxing.com or iTube247.com at a cost of $50, $49.99. This event's going to be headlined by the WBC Cruiserweight Champion of the World, Makabu, 28-2, goes up against Dabisu Minchinu. Well, I know I botched that. But obviously this is significant because, as we said earlier or we talked about prior, Canelo Alvarez might be in attendance for this fight. Obviously, Makabu's name has gained significant attention because Eddie Reynoso at the WBC convention or whatever it was in Mexico a couple months back had requested that Canelo fight for the cruiserweight championship of the world against Makabu. So obviously, if whoever is the victor this weekend and stays with the WBC cruiserweight championship of the world, might likely be, and you tell me this, will they be the realistic favorite to face Canelo?
I think so. If you were gonna just jump up and try to kind of steal, a world title, he has a very good relationship with the WBC, and looking at that weight division, whoever wins this is probably the weakest link. Why not? He's done it at all those other divisions. Why not move up and dare to be great against some of these guys? The big punching guys, but. Canelo gets in there, and Canelo is definitely, I would say, the more skillful boxer. Definitely has the better IQ. Makabu was defeated by Tony Bellew, and personally, I think Canelo's a better boxer than Tony Bellew. Bellew's obviously taller, probably maybe more powerful and stuff like that. But I think he has a chance. I honestly do think he has a chance.
Do you think Tony Bellew is the type of guy that now that he's retired, let's just say Canelo beats Makabu hypothetically in the couple of months ahead, and it takes him a little longer to beat him. Did Tony Bellew beat him by decision?
Third round knockout.
So let's just say it takes Canelo a little bit longer than that. And Tony Bellew talks about, he's like, oh, well, I did it quicker, kind of beats that drum. And maybe there's some decent or possible chance that Bellew Canelo could happen. And I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying I want to see it. Do you think Bellew is the type of guy to come out of retirement for a payday like that against Canelo Alvarez?
Yeah, maybe depend on the money and stuff like that. He's only 34 years old.
Right. He's still a young guy.
He's still young enough, but I'm not too sure. When he got defeated by Usyk, he talked about, like injuries, and he'd made his money, and he kind of just wanted to spend time with his family now and stuff like that, and he didn't want to get hurt, so it would have to be a crazy amount of money, and which is possible because when you fight Canelo, you're looking at 4, 5, 6 million, even more sometimes. Like Jacobs got like 10, 12 million or something like that.
He was the best. That was the best negotiation for his team. He did it, man.
Yeah. So there's a lot of money to be made, and if you have been watching him on social media lately, I don't know whether it's just because he put a little bit of weight on, but he has been kind of training. He's always putting videos of him on his Peloton, trying to lose weight and stuff like that. He was kind of vocal. I don't know whether he was trying to position himself for a fight with Jake Paul, when he was kind of talking crap to Jake Paul, when Jake Paul was kind of jokingly trying to provoke people, saying that he was carrying boxing. And, right. Bellew took offense to that and started, answering back. But you're like, come on, dude, you know what he's doing. That's his persona. Yeah. That's his character. Exactly. He says stuff on purpose. So, but it looks like everybody, wants that Jake Paul money. Bellew, Bradis Prescott gets a tattoo of him on his leg.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So everybody tries to, say something, get involved, hoping Jake Paul will answer back and they can, get some of that pay-per-view money.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But yeah, Canelo's going to be supposedly at this fight in Ohio, so we'll see how that adds to the dramatic effect of this event. Does Canelo get in the ring if Makabu wins, or if his opponent wins? Is it Minchino? Imagine being Makabu's opponent right now. I know maybe it's Chunu, maybe. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. Imagine being him, especially this week, being fight week, where he's like, man, if I win, I might be in the sweepstakes. It's a good chance I might be in the sweepstakes for a Canelo Alvarez fight. Imagine that. Like, holy crap. Nobody thought Makabu was going to be in there. And then, if his opponent, I'm sure this motivates. I think both of these fighters are very highly motivated right now for this weekend's fight. I really do.
This is a rematch from May 2015. They fought. Makabu won by 11th round KO. But at the time, it was 95-96, 95-95, 94-97.
Oh,
the other way. So it was a draw.
Yeah.
It was a draw at the time of the stoppage. So, one of them's 30, one of them's 33. Similar type of record, similar type of experience. It's going to be a good fight. It's going to be a good fight. It's definitely one of those ones where you don't necessarily know the names. You've never really followed their careers, but it's I would watch it, but I don't know whether I'd want to shell out $50. But I would watch it if you can find it somewhere.
Only in America. Also on the card, Trevor Bryan, 21-0, goes up against Jonathan Gaudry. Gaudry? Hopefully.
I think it's Guidry.
I
think so.
This is for the WBA regular heavyweight title. I mean, I don't know. That WBA needs to. I know they said they were going to take these belts away, but they just did something that we'll talk about in a little bit. But Trevor Bryan, he's obviously promoted by Don King. I know Don King is trying his hardest to get Trevor Bryan a significant fight with a Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua. He's trying to get him into one of those payday fights. Obviously that's the goal, right?
Yeah, obviously this was supposed to be Manuel Cha. Manuel Cha, for some reason, couldn't obtain a visa. Jonathan Guidry was on the undercard, scheduled for an 8-rounder. He got the phone call, moved up to the heavyweight spot. I believe he's getting paid, for people that want to know, I believe he's getting paid $70,000 plus $10,000 in training fees. So $80,000 for a WBA heavyweight world title fight.
Wild.
So it doesn't seem an awful lot of money, but this should be a walk in the park for Trevor Bryan. Guidry's literally just fought club fights the whole time, his whole career. If Trevor Bryan has anything about him, this should be easy work. I would imagine his next opponent after this, if he takes it, Daniel Dubois is very highly ranked in the WBA rankings. Joe Joyce is
maybe
highly ranked. I would imagine one of those two. But knowing Don King, it seems to be very hard to work with. I'm sure Don King will do whatever Don King wants to do.
Right.
Unless Daniel Dubois or Joe Joyce can work themselves into a mandatory position for that. Like you kind of said, he'll probably, I'm sure Don King will just take the highest payday because he gets a cut. So,
right. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it ends up happening. News and notes of this week's episode. As we talked about the WBA, they recently reordered the matchup between Tank Gervonta Davis and Rolly Romero. Romero was obviously pulled from a December matchup with an original date with Davis in December of last year, after facing numerous allegations of sexual misconduct, which no charges ended up being filed. I guess the case was reportedly dropped, which I'm assuming if the WBA went along and reordered it, because I'm sure they talked to PBC and Al Heyman and they're like, okay, we can do it now. I'm telling you, I think this is Mayweather's way of rewarding Rolly Romero. I think they really like the kid, and this is their way to reward him. Because I thought, okay, after that happened and Davis fought Cruz, I thought, okay, well, Romero's not going to get a shot at Davis anymore. If he does, it's not going to be for a while. I'm telling you, I think Mayweather Promotions, that whole team, Floyd especially, I think they like Rolly Romero, and this is their way to try to reward him. I mean, what else could it be? And it's funny, before you continue, it's funny that the WBA is enforcing, or at least ordering, a mandatory matchup with Rolly Romero being the mandatory opponent for Gervonta Davis's regular WBA title.
Yeah, he seems to be liked. I think he does have that kind of love-hate relationship with fans. People either seem to like him or they hate him because of the kind of controversial stuff that he says. He has got a WBA regular or gold title or whatever he won that time when he lost, but he was gifted it on the cards.
So who has it? Does Davis have it or Romero has it?
I think they both have one.
Like, do they? I don't even know anymore.
Rody did have some type of WBA title at the time when he fought. I can't think who it was, but he was gifted it. Lost. Really should have lost on points and was gifted it. We know they like to keep it in house as well. PBC and stuff like that work. Alongside Mayweather Promotions, obviously a lot, and they like to keep in-house fights. So they promote it. And they also manage them. I think everyone kind of knows that. So they keep the money in-house and then they just keep all the fighters fighting each other and they get paid twice. They get in the promotion and then they're also getting the management fees. Everyone knows it. It's not hidden. So
no, right. I was surprised that it's likely going to happen again. I thought they were going to move on from Romero, but they obviously really like him and they're running out of essentially fighters for Davis to fight that are outside of, the big names like Lomachenko, Ryan Garcia, and Devin Haney and those guys. So I think Romero is that last one where they're like, okay, we can still push it to this guy and he deserves, the payday. And then I'm assuming, and you would think as a fan, you would hope so. And then they would move on to try to make the fights with the other guys at 135 pounds, the bigger names. But we'll see. We will see. But yeah, I was very surprised that this is likely continuing forward. Also, Chocolatito Gonzalez gets a new opponent after El Gallo Estrada reportedly I've seen reports that he's had COVID symptoms and then that he had COVID, but I've seen two different type of reports. So I don't know what's going on there, but obviously he's come down with something. So good luck to him. Hopefully he makes a speedy recovery and whatever it is. But I'm very happy with the replacement. We got to give props to Matchroom Boxing and Eddie Hearn. Julio Cesar Martinez is moving up from 112 pounds to 115 pounds to face Chocolatito Gonzalez. The date is still staying the same, March 5th in the San Diego area. It's actually Temecula, California, I believe, but it's closer to San Diego. It's right outside San Diego. Hey man, I'm happy with the replacement. I saw some Twitter people, some commentary saying, it's not the same. He's moving up. He's smaller. Gonzalez is going to going to knock him out. It's going to be an easy fight, but I like it. I think from the bet, whatever's available, you have the world champion from 112 pounds, the division below, moving up. Like, okay, yeah, I'll fight you. I'm cool with it. They both can fight. They both, are fighting on the zone. I'm cool with it. What about you?
Absolutely love it. Love it. Big fan of Chocolatito. Big fan of Julio Cesar Martinez ever since we saw him in Arizona. Love it. Absolutely love it. Love the fight. Can't wait to see it.
Hopefully none of them get sick.
Yeah, I mean, that would be awful.
That would suck.
I already applied for the day off work. If they don't give me it, I'm going to bang in sick.
You better hope none of them are listening.
I know some of them actually do, so hopefully not. Yeah, I mean, obviously, everyone wanted to see the trilogy. You can't help, obviously, due to, injury, due to COVID. This is the next best thing. Next best thing, in my opinion. Cannot wait to see this.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This is awesome. Yeah.
I mean, this is one of those fights that it doesn't need a world title on the line. There's not going to be one because obviously Martinez has one in the weight division below, but it doesn't need one. It doesn't need one to be a headliner. This is an unbelievable fight.
I mean, imagine this could be a type of like Isaac Cruz and Gervonta Davis. Isaac Cruz was technically fighting in the division below 135, moved up for the opportunity after Rolly Romero was replaced. And look at, he arguably, to some people, he won. To some
Yeah.
people, he won that fight, and he gave Davis, I mean, I would say maybe his toughest test to date. You know,
Probably.
this is possible. This is possible that Martinez could do this to Gonzalez. He could.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great fighter. I think everybody who's obviously watched those Matchroom shows has seen that he's just a beast. Remember his last fight where he got knocked down and he just keeps coming forward like he's a juggernaut. Literally just puts those gloves up around his ears and he just comes forward. So he's absolutely great to watch. And, you know, like Eddie Hearn said, like they just offer Martinez fights and he just accepts. And obviously this is what's happened. You know, whether he was kind of already in the waiting in case, you know, something did happen to either Chocolatito or Estrada, or whether he was just randomly called and he's just like, yeah, I'll take it. He's got plenty of time. What are we looking at? 5-6 weeks until March the 5th?
Got a lot of time. I'm sure he was already training too. So this is awesome. I'm a fan of it too. This is great replacement. So definitely saves the card. Sonny Edwards versus Mohammed Wasim and Regis Prograis versus Tyrone McKenna is set for March 19th in Dubai. This is I'm assuming this is a Pro Bellum card. So that was recently. Was it announced or was it reported?
No, it's announced. They put posters up on Twitter today, which is good because Sonny Edwards beats Mohammed Wasim. Obviously, Julio Cesar Martinez fights March 5th. Sonny Edwards fights March 19th. Same schedule. Same schedule.
They can fight later in the year.
I know that obviously everyone's going to say, yeah, but Julio Cesar Martinez is moving up, but he hasn't dropped his WBC title. Right. And hopefully this is just a one-off. He comes back, fights Sonny Edwards, IBF, WBC, unification. Obviously, awesome. You've got the history against, with Julio Cesar Martinez, kind of beating Charlie Edwards, but hits him on the floor, gets disqualified. So we have to see that. We have to see that fight. So hopefully same schedule, which means summertime or something like that. We get to see that.
And then Anthony Joshua has denied accepting a step-aside deal for Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk to proceed forward. There was reports that he was supposed to get 50 million pounds, I'm assuming, which is ridiculous, to step aside. But AJ made a video and posted on social media saying this wasn't true. If you don't hear it from me or my team, don't believe it. What's the likelihood that this does happen, though, that AJ takes step aside money and lets Tyson Fury and Usyk go forward?
I'm kind of thinking he might, because he didn't categorically say, like, no, I'm not taking it. I'm fighting Usyk. He selected his words very well. He's just like, there's no deal, like, at this time. No one said anything. I haven't been offered anything. There was no, outright no. Like, I am a fighter. I do not take step aside money. I'm going to fight Usyk in March or April. That's not what he said. If you kind of like look at these actual wording of it. Also, like, the fight was supposed to be like March, April time. It's already pretty much the end of, end of January. He hasn't announced his new trainer. Doesn't seem to be in camp. He's been out in Dubai and stuff like that. He's already touched on he's going to have to kind of change his style, get used to a new trainer. Like, why is he not in camp? I don't get it. If he's going to bring a new guy in, this new guy's probably going to have, new things for him to do. He's going to have to learn the style. They're going to have to get to know each other. But he's not even in camp yet. So in my eyes, it's kind of like, okay, like, things are kind of pointing towards him not fighting Usyk, in my opinion. Either that or he's not been, very clever, in my opinion, about, selecting a new trainer and getting to know them, like every day counts. And he's just out there traveling. And I'm sure he has a crap load of business opportunities from all the sponsors he has. So maybe that's why. Maybe he has other obligations right now. But you've just lost all of your world titles. And surely that's the biggest thing, to get those back, because they bring in the money, they bring in the sponsors, they bring in the eyes. But, hopefully we'll see soon, because it's end of January and these fights need to be announced, because if it's not March, you're going to have to go April. You go into May, that's Canelo month. You're not going to want to be up
Yeah.
against Canelo. You don't want two big pay-per-views in the same month because, AJ Canelo against each other. I don't see it. So then you're looking at summer.
Right. No, you're right. That's a very fair point. Unless Canelo and AJ are on the same card, imagine
Imagine that. Imagine how much that'd sell.
in Vegas. Imagine that. I'm telling you, I know they probably won't ever do it because you can make so much money with separate cards, but
$100 pay-per-view.
you probably could. I mean, oh, maybe. I don't know if it could be $100. AJ's name isn't big enough in the United States, I don't think.
Well, I think it would just have to be to generate the revenue for both their purses.
No, yeah. In that regard,
have to
yeah.
be like $100, wouldn't it? Like a Mayweather and Pacquiao. I think if memory serves me right, that was 100, right?
Yeah. No, you're right. And you look at it like from that regard, yeah, you're right. But obviously our guest of the week, as you can see from clicking on this week's episode, is heavyweight prospect Jeremiah Milton, who's 3-0 and 3 KOs. With 3 KOs, he fights this upcoming weekend on ESPN from Tulsa, Oklahoma. A top-ranked card against Jason Bergman. The interview was great. He's a great guy. He goes through his background, how he became a fighter. He said he recently just took up fighting within the last 5-6 years or so. He played football at Northeastern State University. He talked about that. He sparred the who's who of heavyweights at the moment, including Tyson Fury. He talks about that. He's currently training in Las Vegas right now. He was a great interview, great talker. He gave us a lot of details. What'd you think, Mike?
Yeah, great interview. He's lived, a very varied life. He was a PE teacher, played football, then, went into boxing. He moved to Vegas for his career, sparred everybody, Daniel Dubois, Joe Joyce, Tyson Fury. He gets in and tells us about those, what he's learned from each one. Been in Canelo's camp. I don't want to give away too much, but yeah, a great interview.
Right. Yeah. Obviously, we don't want to spoil it too much here, and we want you guys to listen and get to know Jeremiah Milton. Obviously, thanks to him and his team, and also the team at Top Rank for assisting us in setting this up this week. But we will talk to you guys next week. Obviously, you're going to listen to this interview as we throw it to it in a second. But obviously, follow us on social media at The Last Round 12. Check us out. We have clothing with Fit Warrior brand. You can go on our link tree. Go on our social media handle. This should be available on there. We have some t-shirts and some sweaters. Check us out and support us. If you have any ideas for guests or anybody you think would be a decent guest here on The Last Round, send us a message, send us an email, and then we'll take into consideration your suggestions and see what we can do. But throwing it to this week's guest here on The Last Round, it's heavyweight prospect Jeremiah Milton.
And now it's time for the last round interview of the week.
Heavyweight prospect Jeremiah Milton joins us this week on The Last Round. Thank you for joining us, Jeremiah.
Yo, appreciate you having me, Danny. It's good to be here.
Thank you. We appreciate it. So obviously you're fighting this weekend, but before we talk about this weekend's fight for you on the 29th in Oklahoma, for our listeners who might not be aware of you, because obviously you're 3-0. You're currently, as of today, you're 3-0 with 3 KOs.
Yep.
So all your fights have been knockouts. So for a listener or a couple listeners who might be listening who might not know your story, can you give us a little bit about your background, how you got into boxing? We know you were a football player in college, but what led you to go from football to boxing?
Yeah, actually, you know what? Boxing was always my first passion. It was something that I never competed in, though, when I was younger. Just something I do in my neighborhoods and stuff. Little street scraps, nothing serious. My mom wasn't really a big fan of it at the time, though, the idea of doing something like that. So I, listened to her wishes, you know what I'm saying? I went to school and did other things and took a couple different routes, but, something always kept drawing me back to boxing. just the love of, the fight game, I guess, and just, the feeling of being a fighter, being a real fighter, that is, what I'm saying, and challenging myself. Yeah, it's just something that just kept, pulling at me like, yo, let's do this. Let's like pick it up.
What's your earliest memory of boxing? Like even before you started actually boxing, in the amateurs or anything like that. What do you remember the most?
Yo, I mean, the earliest memory for me for boxing probably have to be, like cliche enough, some like the old Rocky movies, you know what I'm saying? Just him getting down, what I'm saying, being the underdog, you know what I'm saying, and seeing him go through his life struggles, you know what I'm saying? Like it was inspirational. As for a lot of boxers, they have that story or something similar to it. But maybe also, you know what I'm saying, just getting into a couple of scraps and stuff around the neighborhood with the kids in school, too.
Jeremy, how was it taking the transition from kind of fighting on the street to fighting in the ring with all the rules and getting punched in the face for the first time?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I wasn't always a big kid. I wasn't always a heavyweight, you know what I'm saying? I was a bit smaller when I was younger. So like, fighting just something that, most kids might have to go through. If, I transferred so many schools, I was always a new kid. So that didn't really help my case, you know what I'm saying, a lot of times. But it helped you, like, you know what I'm saying, develop confidence. One thing in the sport of boxing, you got to have confidence. You got to be prepared. It's definitely not the streets, you know what I'm saying? So that's not what I'm trying to bring out of that. But, you know what I'm saying, it helps, having that comfortability, you know what I'm saying, with the idea of somebody wanting to take your head off.
How tall are you right now? Like what's your overall size right now?
Yo, I'm 6'4", but usually I have my hair up, and that may be like 6'9" or something, So like,
Yeah.
If I keep growing these dreads, man, I'll be a little taller. But yeah, I'm listed as 6'4". I don't think I'm any taller than that.
I mean, it's good that that you're at least 6'4" or above. Usyk I think is about 6'4" and stuff like that. Just because the heavyweights nowadays, I mean, I know you see the landscape; they're big guys. 6'6", 6'7", 6'9". So it's not like Mike Tyson was what, maybe 6 foot, maybe 5'11". So it's not that type anymore. I think even Muhammad Ali was maybe 6'2". So
215.
Right. So the heavyweights of today are, giants compared to like those two. But transitioning to your nickname, we asked you just before we started recording on how to actually pronounce it. You said it was Dreamland. How did you get that nickname?
Yo, actually, it's significant to my city. It was a movie theater out there that was like back in 1920. It was burned down in 1921, but it was like where everybody went to go watch the shows. So it's called Williams Dreamland Theater, and apparently they were around the United States, other Dreamlands, but this was significant to my city, and it was a place for people to gather. You know what I'm saying? And I feel like my life has been like that movie type situation. So like, just come watch the show. You know what I'm saying? And I'm gonna send somebody to Dreamland for you.
Where did you grow up? What city?
Yeah, that's Tulsa, Oklahoma, home of Black Wall Street. It's got a lot of recognition with the climate today, but you know what I'm saying, with the history behind it. But yeah, that'll always be home for me.
Did you have any friends growing up in your childhood who actually boxed alongside you or wanted to box, or were you the only one out of maybe that any group that you had?
No, I say I'm the only one that, that wanted to do this. I even have 5 older brothers. None of them played any sports, but I try to drag some of my friends into doing things like this. But it's kind of hard to convince people to, do something like that.
To get punched in the face, yeah. I get it. So the first time you started training, how old were you?
The first time I took boxing serious and I walked into the gym sparring and all, actually was about 5 years ago. So I've only been boxing for about 5 years. So that would put me at like right around 22. Right around 22 when I decided like, yo, I'm gonna like give this a shot. I always owned a pair of gloves though. I had some title DVD tapes and stuff like that. My teacher gave me at 15. But like I say, that was just me in my room, you know what I'm saying, shadow boxing, whatever you would call it actually. So yeah, I walked into a gym at 22 and, from there it really became, serious.
So last week we had Evan Holyfield, the son of the legendary Evander Holyfield, on as our weekly guest. And he's a young guy too, and he was talking about like the first time that he started training, and after his first day of like training, when he like started getting punched in the face, and how he got in the car with his mom, and he was like, "Man, I don't know if I want to do this." Did you have that same feeling? After that first day when you really probably maybe got punched in the face?
Nah. I mean, I say it like this. You know what I'm saying? You got to take a lot of ass whoopings before you can give them out. You know what I'm saying? That's just the reality of the sport. So like, I had moments to where like, things didn't go my way, and I'm like, yo, I had a rough day, man. Like I got in there with somebody who's more experienced, professionals or whatever, and you know what? But you always look at it like, okay, this is where I'm at now. You know what I'm saying? But I know I could be better. You know what I'm saying? Like when I was watching the Olympic year, actually 2016 Rio, I was like, wow, I think I can mix with these guys. You know what I'm saying? Like knowing I would have got slaughtered at that moment. You know what I'm saying? But like, I just kept grinding, until I got my name out there.
So 5 years ago, at 22 years old, who was who were you who was at the top of your list in terms of boxer at that time? Who were you watching? You're like, okay, that's the guy for me in the sport right now.
Yo, it was definitely Floyd, man. I mean, you look at Floyd, he started like really going hard with the all access. I mean, I was a general public, you know what I'm saying? Oklahoma ain't really big on boxing. So like I was right there with the guys that were just kind of like coming into AB, watching him brush his hair. Like who's this guy on World Star brushing his hair, man, talking all this crap. And then yeah, man, Floyd, he was just real inspirational with doing it his own way and promoting his lifestyle and can't be touched, all these different things. And I've been watching other guys too before, but I really took an interest in those prologues with Floyd.
Jeremiah, you played obviously football to a good level. Was there ever a time where you had to make a choice between either following the football route or sticking with the boxing?
Yeah, absolutely. So I walked away from my scholarship, you know what I'm saying? Like I chose to walk away from my scholarship. And actually, I just wanted to fight. So I was going to do MMA. I was watching John Jones at the time. I walked into an MMA gym. I had 8 canceled fights. Never fought MMA before, but having a little boxing experience from scrapping in my neighborhood and in wrestling, I just thought I could take on the world, of course. Then once that wasn't really working out, I said, yo, let me just go all in with boxing, because I started doing my research too. And you see those guys over there in the UFC, Francis Ngannou not clearing $1 million for this fight last night. Yo, he's a superstar. So, I got to make the right decisions too. I remember AB, reference to him again, relatively unknown in the Paul Naji fight to the general public with the World Star video, but, I think he cleared $1 million that night. And so I like, it's not about being famous for me. You know what I'm saying? I'm going to always speak and, give my opinion and, hope to push something out there to inspire people. But, at the end of the day, if you fighting and you generating all this money, they should be paid.
That's true. That's true. So you played defensive end at Northeastern State University. How was that experience? Like Mike just asked you, obviously you had to make a decision and you declined that scholarship that you had on the table and you chose the boxing route. But during your time at Northeastern State, how was that?
What's crazy is I only played football my senior year, and next thing you know, I'm playing in college. And I was great actually. You know what I'm saying? I had a look. You know what I'm saying? Just an inquiry from the Kansas City Chiefs, a recruiter, but it didn't really manifest anything because in the sport, any sports you deal with, you got to deal with politics. And so I was unrightfully benched going into my red shirt like junior year. Towards the end of the season, I was putting up some great numbers, but honestly, I don't know what happened. We had change in staff every year, so they benched me. And that really messed up how I was, putting up the rest of my stats at the end of that year. And at the end of the day, I was like, well, I just don't like people having this much control over me. I'm not really, if you're playing with a team and your team ain't winning, then you get lumped into a loser's bracket too. And then, emotions get the better of everybody. So like one thing about boxing is, you you control your fate in that ring. You know, like you can look in the mirror and be like, okay, that's on me. I was slacking off here or there. And thing about it is, like, people can't deny people that can fight. You know, if you can fight, you're gonna get the opportunity to fight.
So hypothetically, obviously, looking back on that, it's different now. But hypothetically, if you got the playing time that you wanted and your team was winning, you know, everything was kind of up, you know, flipped, do you think you still would have chosen the boxing route?
You know what? Boxing has been one of those sports for me, yeah, that I've been able to come back to even when it's not, you know what I'm saying? It's a poor man's sport, man. It wasn't looking great in amateurs, you know what I'm saying? I struggled a lot. You know, and I went through some adversity with football too. And, you know, I was younger. The decision was made completely out of emotion. You know what I'm saying? That's one thing I try not to move off of now to quit football. I wasn't enjoying it, but I've always been passionate about, you know, a little bit more contact, a little bit more a little bit more violence, if I'm just being real. So like, yeah, I was able to, you know, flip that and go back into fighting. But I couldn't tell you, you know what I'm saying? Because like I don't regret nothing as far as, you know what I'm saying, stop playing football. But, you know, I'm very happy where I'm at now.
So you were also a middle school physical education teacher, right? I mean, I'm sure that surprises a lot of people listening right now. What was that like? And did you always want to become some type of teacher at that point?
Negative. I can't say that I did, but you know what? One thing is, you know, I'm great with people. Honestly, I am. I don't necessarily think that it's like me like having some type of chip on my shoulder that just, you know, I gotta be a bad man all day, but I'm capable of doing what needs to be done. And you know, in this world, you can't always get past, you know, certain situations. So like, you know, I enjoy fighting. I really have a passion for it, but I do fighting because I'm able to go there, like mentally.
Right. Mike, did you have a question?
I was actually going to say the same thing you did. Jeremiah, you recently signed for Tony Holden Promotions, which is, you know, out of your hometown.
Yeah. I mean, like I say, I can't say more good things about that, you know what I'm saying? Because it's given me an opportunity to go back. You know, I'm fighting on these top ranked cards, and they do a lot of things with other promoters too. They did some activity with the Jake Paul Tyron Woodley card as well. So like, I'm gonna get an opportunity to fight out of my hometown while still reaching, you know, the rest of the world.
I also read that you're looking for a future fight with Trey Lip Morrison, the son of Tommy Morrison.
Yeah. I mean, that fight is always there. You know what I'm saying? Like, I think it's a big fight for back home. I think, you know what I'm saying, it's something, you know, with the people that support me from Tulsa, the people I brought to boxing, and the people that support him, you know what I'm saying? Like, down the line, I always feel like that'll be a good fight. But like I said, I'm not just looking to do things on a local level. I'm looking to, you know, expand. You know, like, I want people to know where I'm from, but, you know, I'm looking to crack it to the world stage.
I saw on your Instagram that you were sparring with big Frank Sanchez for this fight, and you were down in San Diego at the Canelo gym.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been down there like 3 times now, you know what I'm saying, working with Canelo's team and helping Frank get ready for sparring and whatnot, or his fights. And so yeah, that's been major. A lot of top heavyweights, you know what I'm saying? Just Vegas has given me that opportunity, really, you know what I'm saying, to travel out of here and to you know, get my name up amongst guys that are at a high level. So yeah, I'm only 3-0 currently, but like I say, I'm around a lot of killers.
Yeah, what's life like at the Alvarez gym? Because you know they're doing something right in there. Whatever they're feeding them, they're doing something right. And like, how does it differ to some of the other camps that you've worked in?
I just feel like it's just the amount of professionalism that goes into it. You know, that's one of the difficult things about like trying to recreate a situation like that. Because I'm all about like, you know, taking what I see that works and applying it to my own, you know, graft and my own craft. So like, you know, they just have a good system. It's like a family up in there. Similar to my time in London with Coach Martin and those guys, they just have a great system. Uh, and I think that's going to produce results. It's not a real flash gym, so people just come in there, they get their work in. Everybody's greeting each other. Not a lot of cameras or anything coming in. Nobody just coming in there to gawk. You know what I'm saying? So like it's real private. You get in, you get out.
I saw in an interview you were talking about doing a few rounds with Canelo. Did that happen?
Nah, see, we were supposed to. We were supposed to spar, and it was crazy because he was going to be fighting with Caleb. That was going into the Caleb fight. But I'm not ruling that out as a possibility because they was dead serious. It was crazy. He looked at me. Eddie looked at me. He was just sizing me up. Canelo was sizing me up. And they was like, hey, man, come back and spar with us. But then something came up that Saturday, so it didn't end up happening. But you know what? The dude is, he got the skills. He's a world champ. It'd be great to share the ring with him. You know what I'm saying? Although I'm a lot bigger, you know what I'm saying? But it'll definitely be something I have to keep my wits about me on, even though, because he got a lot of skills.
If he moves up to light heavyweight or cruiserweight, I'm sure they'll give you the call, right?
Yeah. I mean, like I say, it's a 4-hour drive from me. I just pop up, you know what I'm saying? I'm right there. Andy need to work. Canelo need to work. Frank need to work. Those are my guys.
How did that come about? How did they reach out to you to go over there the first time?
Dude, I've been putting it in and sparring, man. These managers, need help with getting their guys ready, and word of mouth just travels out. Like, man, I know this cat. So actually, it was my boy Johnny Rice hooked me up with Charles Martin's team, and then I go out to Charles Martin's team, and I do great out there. And because of me doing great with Charles, Frank's team, who was connected to Charles in some way, hits me up, and that puts me in Canelo's gym.
Man, how was it? I mean, when you first got that call, when you were told like, hey, Frank Sanchez, Canelo wants you to go over there and help them out or help Frank out at their gym.
Yeah, I mean, dude, like I say, once again, I got to remind people sometimes I'm from Oklahoma. No knock to my city, but like that's a big deal. So whenever I got that opportunity, I heard about it. I was just like, man, I'm really about to drive down, and I'm watching greatness in his presence. You know what I'm saying? Canelo is still rolling. Canelo is, the face of boxing right now, undeniably. Just being a part of that history, that's a story that's going to always be with me.
So like Mike said, I mean, it's obviously possible that you could spar Canelo. I mean, especially if you've been to his gym, Frank Sanchez has worked with you, Eddie knows you and stuff like that, especially if the timing this week, the cruiserweight champion of the world, the WBC cruiserweight champion, is fighting this weekend. And there's reports, so I don't know if it's confirmed, but there's reports that Canelo might be in attendance for that fight, because there's obviously some workings behind the scenes that those two want to fight for that title. So it's highly possible that you might be called back and Canelo might say, hey, I need to spar guys your size.
Yeah, man. Like I say, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. You know what? They're just a great team, man, and they got my number for sure.
Jeremiah, you've literally sparred a who's who of heavyweights: Joe Joyce, Daniel Dubois, Tyson Fury, Frank Sanchez, Luis Ortiz, Michael Hunter, Prince Charles Martin. Out of that group that I've just named, or if I've missed anybody, you can name those as well. Who stands out to you and why?
Yo, I mean, you know what? Like, I said 1,000 times, it's always gonna have to be Fury. The competitive nature of that guy was unreal, but it was in a good way, man. It was fun. It was challenging. He was having a great time. He was serious. Real down to earth guy. Being in his position, I could tell when he was in Vegas. You know what I'm saying? Like how many people was just rushing him to just try to take a picture with him every day. And I'm like, yo, man, you just took a picture yesterday. Like, let the man, you know what I'm saying, do his thing. But stopped every time. You know what I'm saying? And as far as the sparring goes, man, like very tricky, very challenging. Forced me to think. Leveled me up. The London trip leveled me up too. Sparring with Daniel Dubois, that helped me with my strength and feeling other heavyweights and training like that because I did workouts with his team as well. So I gotta give credit there too. But man, that Fury camp was just something.
How was Joe Joyce? Because a lot of people say he looks slow, but he's strong.
Oh yeah, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Like I say, I'm not knocking any of these heavyweights I've been in the ring with. Each one of them got their own gifts. And Joe is very surprisingly awkward, So he might not necessarily be the fastest heavyweight. But he makes up with that with his timing and just that awkward movement. And he can go. He has a good motor on him. So, he brings a lot of things to the table. You know what I'm saying? Of course, he has that beard everybody talks about. You know, so yeah, I like to see what he does. You know what I'm saying? Moving forward.
He's doing something right, isn't he?
Yeah. I mean, you know what? He moved at a pace. I think he was the rightful gold medalist. And I sparred with Tony Yoka too. I sparred with Tony Yoka before I turned pro. I think Joe won that fight. I know Tony got his hands full with Herkovich, but that'll be an interesting fight.
Out of all those names that we just named of who you sparred so far, have you been able to have conversations with any of these guys like Fury or Joyce, and is there anything that like they've told you like in terms of advice in your career where you're just like, oh man, I felt that one, or I'm definitely going to listen to that?
Yeah. And, one thing about it is like, one thing you got to try to do is whenever you have these moments, you got to make sure you keep them and you got to refresh them, because a lot of times you just be moving about your day and, you get back into your own system or whatever. And, I just make sure that whatever it is I'm learning from these guys, I'm just going to apply. You know what I'm saying? Definitely moving forward, especially like just how they structure things, you know what I'm saying, and how they take control of their careers. They're very, a lot of these guys at the top, you know what I'm saying, they are in position financially, especially. But other than that, like they seem to know what they want to do.
Jeremiah, how was it for you, working alongside Tyson Fury and then Tyson Fury in interviews afterwards tipping you, and Jared Anderson for greatness?
Yeah, dude, like I say, I'm real, man. I'm Oklahoma, man. This kid right here, man. School teacher, other different things. I've worked so many things, and now I'm living in my purpose. It's amazing because, I'm not the guy on the couch flipping through YouTube. You know what I'm saying? I'm really in here. Yo, I'm standing next. The first time we sparred, man, I'm like, damn, what the hell I get myself into? Like, how did I get out here? You know what I'm saying? From just, I don't know, man. It's crazy. We went from like, yo, I'm putting on these gloves. I was talking to my homeboy. I was like, man, you know what? He was doing this out in the apartments, man. And now I'm out here like standing with what type of crazy, what does that even make sense? That makes sense to anybody? You sitting here with these gloves on, man. You stand across the ring from the world champ talking about ding ding. You know what? I can't help but laugh and smile about it, man. I'm enjoying it.
Hey, I mean, you're obviously doing something right? If you found yourself in that moment and, your career's going pretty well, you're undefeated, three wins, 3 knockouts. Transitioning to your fight this weekend, you're fighting this upcoming Saturday from the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in your hometown of Tulsa, Oklahoma on ESPN. Is before we kind of jump into your actual fight against Jason Bergman, you're fighting on a platform like ESPN. How does that make you feel?
You know what? Like, if I'm talking about the feelings, like that'll make you feel like, when I think about it, I'm like, man, I'm about to be like, once again, getting evaluated by the world. Everybody will have an opinion after the fight, what they think about me or what I did or whatever. And that's major. So, you want to approach it like that, especially coming up in the sport. You don't want to, leave a bad impression or, anything like that. But honestly, like I take myself out of the moment the closer it gets. And I just remember like, yo, what I'm doing this for, why I've been doing it, how I've been doing it, and the cameras, the lights, all of it goes away, and it's just a boxing ring.
Do you still get nervous before a fight?
Yeah, it's an up and down thing. But one of the things I learned in college, we had speakers that would come talk to us and stuff. It was like, how do you control the nerves? You know what I'm saying? Like changing it from, nervousness to excitement. So like I don't look at it like, oh, I'm nervous. It's not a nervous feeling, it's an excited feeling, like, what's about to happen? I'm excited for this.
So you're going up against Jason Bergman, who's 27, 20, and 2. What do you know about him on this upcoming Saturday? Have you studied him, or are you just kind of going in and relying on your training and your will to win?
Yeah, no, I mean, I've definitely looked at his fights. I mean, he's not bringing anything that I haven't seen. He's a left-handed fighter. Who cares? The fact is, what I'm saying, he don't have anything to lose. Everything to gain in this fight. And my career has to keep moving. So, I'm thankful he took the fight, but I can't allow him to stop what I got going. So he just got to look for somebody else. I'm sorry.
Jeremiah, are you hoping to get a few rounds in? Since obviously you're 3-0, 3 KOs, or are you kind of looking at this fight because he's fought Trey Lip, he's fought Frank Sanchez, he's fought a lot of people or are you looking at it that you want to better what Trey Lip did because Trey Lip got him out in 3? Yeah,
I want to do all those things. You know what I'm saying? Like as far as like, not necessarily get my rounds in. Like whatever happens with that happens. I'm expecting him to be better at survival, and doing that if he needs to, or to bring a fight, whatever, because he has experience. He's been in there with a lot of the top guys. If I can get him out of there in a more impressive fashion, then that's great for me. But like I say, it's still boxing. Anything can happen. So I'm just being wise about it. Not going to overanalyze the moment, but if you know anything about me, that cerebralness about me helps me take my shot.
Don't get paid for overtime, right?
No OT.
Jeremiah, who's your trainer at the moment?
So I'm working with Coach Otis. We're over at the Mayweather Boxing Gym. Mm-hmm. Been over there for about 5 months now, and it's been a really good transition.
So how is it in there? Because sometimes sometimes they have those doghouse fights where they just kind of keep it going. Have you been a part of those yet?
No, not necessarily, but I've had some. I've had some of my fights. Sparring. I had some of my sparring in there, like what I'm saying, highly watched and stuff. Guys, watching. Never bumped into Floyd over the 5 months of me being in there though. He's been gone, and actually he was in there today, and I'm not in the gym because I'm flying out. So we just keep missing each other. Other than that, I would say the gym has changed a lot from what people did remember it as. You got a lot of kids in there and stuff now, and just people, coming in there doing some fitness stuff, but not necessarily a fitness gym. Not saying that. You still have all the fighters and stuff, but it's a lot more tamed, I think, compared to what I thought it was going to be from whenever I used to watch the YouTube films whenever Floyd was active. I think now that he's not active, it's a lot more chill. Mm-hmm. Some great guys in there. I mean, we still get our rounds in, you know what I'm saying? They still get hyped, people in there, bamming on the ring and stuff. But other than that, it's pretty much you got the usuals in there.
Right. So do you see yourself still, have you only been training there the last 5 months?
Yeah. I'm new over there now. So like I say, I just came over there. I was at Bones Adams. He was my coach for the last fight. And then also working with a coach, Rodney, who I got a lot of respect for the both of them guys, and Rodney as well. I'm new to Mayweather's.
Well, I'm sure eventually you'll run into Floyd, if you keep training there and stuff. But I mean, it's kind of I'm just as surprised as you are. It's kind of crazy. You've been there for 5 months training, going in and out, and not once did you run into him, especially that being his gym. That is kind of strange.
Yeah, I just feel like, now that he's, got so many different ventures going, you know what I'm saying? Of course, he's probably not in there.
Right, right. Well, Jeremiah, we know it's just fight week for you, so we obviously appreciate your valuable time. And like I said, you're fighting this upcoming Saturday, the 29th of January, from the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino in your hometown, Tulsa, Oklahoma, on ESPN against Jason Bergman. Before we let you go here, Jeremiah, go ahead and let our listeners and fans know where they can find you and follow you, and anything you got that you want to plug. Go ahead, man.
Yo, so I just want to say, you know what I'm saying? You can follow me over at Dreamland Milton on Twitter, or Dreamland_Milton on Instagram. I just want to thank, everybody that helped me get ready for this fight as well. The guys that sparring, you know what I'm saying? Because right now, we all are just trying to, help each other get better. So my guys like Skylar, Rob, you know what I'm saying, Antonio, I really appreciate you guys helping me get ready for this, because, I'm not making the money to be paying my sparring partners like that just yet. But you know what? We got a great group of guys down here in Vegas. And a lot of people don't know what goes into that, man. The sparring, helps you out, helps you be ready for anything in a fight. So going in with that confidence, and my boy Johnny Rice, giving me some tips from outside the ring. All that is 100%, undervalued a lot of times. And then the guys I've worked with, especially, going out there with Canelo's team and Frank Sanchez and stuff like that. So I just want to thank all those guys.
Ideally, how many more times are we going to see Jeremiah Milton this year?
Yo, we're going for 5 to 6, man. I'm not slowing down. You know what I'm saying? So if I get something new on the side of that, you know what I'm saying? But I know I'm looking at about 4 more after this.
Sweet. Yeah, man. The more active you are, the better, man. Especially more people get to see you. Obviously is the better outcome. But good luck this Saturday. We appreciate you giving us the time this week. You're more than welcome to jump back on anytime you want. I'm sure we'll reach back out to you or your team, in the near future again, and have you back on, man, for another update.
Yo, amazing, man. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks for supporting and listening to the show. Follow us at The Last Round 12 on social media. Rate, review, and subscribe. This is The Last Round Podcast.